Okay, if we can get started. It's a little after 1, so we want to get this going. Now we are taping these presentations so that we'll be able to put it onto our website for those that aren't here today. So bear with me as we get things ready up there. I'm assuming we're okay. Good. Well, welcome to our 18th annual general meeting of the Bruce Power Pensioners Association. I appreciate everybody coming out today on such a beautiful day. I'm sure some people would rather be out golfing right now, but thanks for your sacrifice. Just a few opening remarks. The association now is over 18 years old. We started in 2007, so it's grown dramatically since we first started. We probably had a couple hundred members, and when we initially started in 2007, we're now well over 2,500 members. I would say of the total retirees from Bruce Power, probably 95 to 98% of them have actually joined our association, so that's great. With our 2,500 members, I used to say in the past that we represent over 60,000 years of nuclear experience, but now that we've hit the 2,500 mark, I'm saying we're over 75,000 years of nuclear experience sitting in our association. So if the site ever needs help, there's lots of us here. Now, as an association, I would say we're probably the most active pensioner association around this area. We run a number of social events each year. We run from April until November is really our operating year. We find after November people are heading to warmer climates, although I suspect fewer will be heading south this year. In this year, 2025, we've had 2 social breakfasts. That's where there's no agenda on the day. You just come and socialize with the people you worked with over the number of years and sort of catch up on what's happening. We've had 2 golf days, one in the spring, one in the fall. We've had a bowling day this year, which proved interesting, and I'm sure we'll be probably doing that again next year. We had a presentation by James Scognac, and it was on Canadian at our core, obviously a very topical item right now under the current situation with tariffs. So that was very much appreciated by James doing that. We had close to 200 people turn out for that, so that was great. We also taped that, and it's on our website if someone wanted to see it that wasn't there that day. We have our infamous barbecue at Inverhuron Park, and again, it's for pensioners and their grandkids. So we've probably well over 200 people showed up this year for that. So it's becoming almost unmanageable at this point. So I think maybe in the future we're going to have to put a limit on the amount of people that can come, because it's just too big to handle, which is a good success story as far as I'm concerned. 2 wellness breakfasts a year. That's where people, we have presenters come in and talk about wellness topics specifically for pensioners. And this coming year, 2026, we're going to have Bruce Power Security come in and talk about cybersecurity for seniors and address those sorts of issues. We have the AGM, of course, today, and we have a curling day coming up in November. So that's 11 social events in our 8 months of operating window. But as well as the social events that we have for everybody, we also have, through our travel partners, we have a number of pensioner trips that we organize. This year we were to Croatia, another trip to PEI and Ile de la Madeleine, We had a Taste of Italy tour. I don't know if we've had that yet or if it's coming up. None of these events, all the ones I've listed in these tours, would happen without three things. Certainly the continued strong support of Bruce Power, and we appreciate how much and how well they've supported the Pensioners Association over the years. We certainly appreciate the support, and we obviously are strong advocates for Bruce Power in the community, so it works both ways, I guess. None of it would have happened without your participation. If you didn't come to our events, then they wouldn't happen. So we seem to get a fairly strong turnout for the majority of our events, and we certainly appreciate that. Thank everybody for coming. And probably something that sometimes people do forget, but that's the actual association executive that make all this happen. And none of this would happen without their work. So I'd like to actually introduce the executive today, if I could. Sharon Tatey, treasurer, if you can just raise your hand if you're here. She is here today, but she may be out paying the bill for lunch. So, Nancy Alexander, Les Booth, who looks after our golf tournaments, that he's not here today. He's away visiting his 98-year-old mother. So good for him. Graham Hancock, who's looking after our IT and website. Joe Cottrell, who looks after social events. Kevin Lanester, who looks after our travel team. Brian Schiniger looks after membership and communications. So all the emails that you get from me are actually sent out by Brian. I have nothing to do with sending them out. I just compose them. Lee Fuller, who isn't here today, looks after our wellness team. And we couldn't do all this, again, as an executive without Dwight Irwin, who's our point of contact with Bruce Power. He's the manager of community relations. As an association, we basically have 5 key functions. One is to represent and maintain a communication channel between Bruce Power and the pensioners. That's our emails, the website, the point that we send out, benefits information, pension information. And we provided reviews on the performance and management of our pension plan, which we'll hear about today from Kevin and his finance team and Monica. We also sit on a tripartite committee on pensions, which with the PW and Society is a communications group that feeds back pension information to you. I sit on that team. And we arrange pensioner activities, which we just talked about a minute ago. One of our other key functions is volunteer and advocates for our local communities. And everybody here participates in that, whether you help out at a food bank or Habitat for Humanity we've done some work on, Huron Shores Hospice, fish hatcheries in both Kincardine and Port Elgin. They actually approached us a few years ago looking for people to help out there, and we provided people. Sauging Sparks Training Group, which provides training for primarily youth in the trades locally, so that they'll stay here and work locally in this area. Georgian College instructors, we've been approached by Georgian College a number of times looking for instructors in a particular trade, and we've been able to provide that. And we've done e-waste collection for Bruce Power at the Visitor Center in the past. One other last key function that we do is be a strong advocate for Bruce Power in the nuclear industry. And we really do take this seriously. We have done presentations to the AECB on license renewal and extensions. We support the Organization of Canadian Nuclear Industries, OCNI, especially when they used to have an office here in Port Elgin. The Nuclear Innovation Institute supporter, talk a bit about that a bit later. Clean Energy Frontier Steering Committee, as your representative, I sit on that steering committee. We'll talk about that a bit later. I also sit as your representative as in an advisory group for the Spark Skill Training Program that's run locally, and Rob Stanley, who's one of our pensioners, is the main driver of that. And previously on the first Bruce C, we were the co-chair for the Citizens for Bruce C, and that was back in 2007, and worked closely with James on that. So, as you can see, we're not just a social group, but we're involved a lot in the community, and we strongly urge all our members to work in their community and make it a better place for all of us to live. And with that, I think I'll turn it right over to Eric Chazard, and he'll go through his presentation and will enlighten us on what's happening at the Bruce site.
Thank you, Doug. Looking at the parking lot, you forgot one association, right? Yeah. The Corvette Association or something. Yeah, really looking forward to joining you. Looks like you have too much fun, so yeah. So thanks for having me, and moreover, the weather this year is much better than last year, so thanks for the good planning and scheduling. I'm just going to give you an overview of the company. I will leave some space for question or whatever you want to discuss. But big picture, the company is doing well, and the pension plan is doing very well. Right? So we are in a good spot. So if that's the main takeaway you got today, we are in a pretty good spot. Very busy, very, very busy. That's why I was saying, joking, but not so much, that be careful what you ask for if you want some work. Right now, we have more than 5,000 people in addition on site, and we are just at the peak of the workload of not only our refurbishment for MCR, the main component replacement, but also our asset management program, because we had to accelerate a lot of the components that we had to replace. It was a nice, steady, flat view that we would spread out, I would say, our asset management program up to 2054. The reality is that we have to accelerate around 5-6 years and replace whole heat exchangers, cable, valve, like everything, right? Much earlier than what we were anticipating. The good news is that we have the cash to do it, and the even better news is that we are getting value for money with good safety record, quality record, and productivity. So I get back to this. So our highlights for 2025, we had a tough year. Honestly, we had a good year. It's not over, and we have an interesting Unit 2 outage right now. Discussing with Steve about generator and this type of things. So these type of things always keep giving, right? But we started with a big fish run end of January. We can get back to it if you want, like a very, very big fish run, mainly linked to the fact that we had a cold winter this year. So gizzard shads, who are not in the area, have been developing a lot, and the only source of warm water they would find were in the outflow, and guess what? They got cooked in the intake, so we had to deal with this. But long story short, so we started the Unit 4 MCR, so we opened breaker February 1st this year. So Unit 4 is just starting the removal phase, so we are removing the feeder and installing the platform. It's on time and on budget, and Unit 3 is ready to start its return to service, so we are in the last phase of construction of Unit 3. And I get back to this because there is lots of innovation that we did on Unit 3, but the last phase of construction with the lower feeders, and after we are returning to service all the system. In fact, all the LPSW moderator is refilled, so it's ready to restart, and you keep it for you, but Unit 3 is 6 months ahead of schedule, so that's pretty good news. If you look at, I'm going to discuss the overall strategy. We are still heavily involved also in the community. So this is this. We change also our approach to support the Sogino Ojibwe Nation community, where in fact we were supporting suppliers, but very little money was going into the community. So now we have an approach where we are directly managing and giving the money directly to the community. So I get back to this. Next slide, please. So there is a lot on this. So that's all our milestone for 2025. So the main takeaway is, in fact, there are two. The fact that we are very, very busy. You can see this if you look at the details of the slide. And the other one is that everything is green. So far we are doing pretty well, and we are hitting all our milestones. But when you discuss with your colleagues who are on site, when they tell you that they are very busy, well, they are. We are very, very busy. Right? It's certainly the busiest time we've seen on site, not only because of NCR, but also we are addressing the huge backlog of late work orders we had. So as I say to the team, our job is to fix the plants. Right? You're going to hear this a lot. In the next 5 years, what the management team is doing is we are fixing the plant. We are bringing back the 8 units to their design level, right? So we are removing any deficiencies we have, correcting all the equipment, and significantly reducing the backlog of work orders. For the ones who know the industry, we compare ourselves in the World Association of Nuclear Operators. Bruce Power has been like forever almost an outlier. We were already at the bottom of the industry in terms of backlog of work orders, that's things we were not fixing. And now we are moving up to be in the first quartile, so really having the plants back like they were designed in terms of redundancies, removing single point vulnerabilities and so on. So it seems easy to say, it's a lot of work, right? So work management, all the planning, preparation is really front and center in all what we are doing. Next slide. So you've seen, I guess, if you're following what's going on in Ontario, we have a very, very strong support from the Ontario government. Certainly one of the best governments we had, if I believe what James is telling me. But they've issued an integrated energy plan, which is a vision up to 2050 for Ontario. So there are two very good news in this plan, supported by the Ontario government. So the first one is they have approved that we're going to refurbish another time Unit 1 and Unit 2, which is extremely important for us, right? Because it seems far away, but we would have to shut down Unit 1 and Unit 2 by 2043. Which is very close, right? When you think about, we are a very long cycle industry. So it's very important for us to secure the fact that we're going to refurb another time, Unit 1 and 2, and that we're going to keep at least 8 operating units on site, right? So that's very important for us, very important for the community, very important for you in terms of support for the pension plan. The other good news is that Bruce C, so an additional 4,800 megawatt is in the plan. So we have the support from the Ontario government. We still have a lot to discuss and decide with them, but it's clearly in the plan to support the increased forecast of the need of electricity in Ontario, driven by all the EVs, electrification of the industry, but also artificial intelligence and this type of things. So if you look at the integrated energy plan, the plan for Ontario is to almost double the energy required by 2050, right? It's an additional 16 gigawatt. Right now, the grid in Ontario is around 21 gigawatt. So a lot of demand, but even if you don't believe that it's going to double, even if it's just half of it, well, it's a lot, right? And the good news is that there is a good push from the Ontario government to increase the electricity generation in Ontario with clean energy. Right? That's very important. And also there is, people understand more and more that if you want to have a full-time economy, Well, you need full-time power. Right? So all the wind, solar, and so on is not really working. You need baseload electricity, and the only clean source of baseload electricity is hydro, but we're kind of maxed up with hydro and nuclear. Right? So there is a good push for this, and I get back to this. Next slide. So that's a buzzy one. That's a confidential one also. So that's our strategy. That's the Bruce Power strategy for the next 10 years on one slide. So when you have time, you can look at it. And the way to read it is you read it from top to bottom, top being the highest priorities, bottom the lowest priority in what we are doing. Right? So if you go from top to bottom, you see that we have a lot of outages, a lot, and still long outages. Right? You're not going to hear me talking about 30-day outage and so on. We are taking the duration of the outages we need to fix the plants. Right, to really maximize the scope we are going to do in the outages to secure the reliability of our equipment. So that's a shift in our strategy, but that's why we are not pushing to reduce the duration of outages, even if we are trying to do more and more inside this duration. Right, there is still a push to be more productive and to deliver more scope inside the outages. The next priority you're seeing is MCR. Right? That's the destiny of the company. We need to deliver our main component replacement and the asset management that goes with it. First, because it's improving equipment reliability, which is our top priority. And at the same time, it's destiny for the company. Right? You know that. We are taking the full risk of the project. It's as if we were signing a fixed price contract with the ISO. So once it's signed, we have the full risk of it. And as I'm used to saying, don't take comfort in the fact that we delivered Unit 6 ahead of schedule and under budget. Why? Because in our contract, right, that we signed back in 2015, we have to reduce the schedule by 30% from 6 to 3 and reduce the cost by 15%. And from 3 to 4, an additional 30% and an additional 15%. And after it's flat. So when I'm telling you that Unit 3 and Unit 4 are on time and on budget, that's very good news. But it's a lot of work. Right? And it's not just continuous improvement. So to be able to achieve this, we have heavily invested in automation. Like Unit 3, we were the first one to do a chemical decontamination to reduce the dose rate inside the station. That's the first time it's been done in the world with the unit that we are restarting. So we've done this on 3, we've done this on 4, and we've been able to reduce the dose rate by 80%. Right? Meaning you need less people because you don't dose out your people. And also the benefit of this is that the more you're doing the same thing, well, we're all the same, right? You're better at it. But if you dose out your workers and they cannot do the next one, well, you don't benefit from the increased proficiency. So that was very important for us. And also, we've been the first one to introduce robots, automation, inside Unit 3 to reassemble the reactor, to do all the inspection for the components we are keeping, but also to install the Calandria tubes, for example, and we are developing the same tool for all the fuel channel, meaning when we are reassembling the reactor, nobody is in the vault. Right? It's all remote operated, like you would see at Toyota or in the automotive industry with 8-axis robots. I think I have a picture of this. So far, so good, but MCR is still a big challenge for us, mainly because of our contract. Right? Because contrary to OPG, where they are a flat spend and schedule, for us, improving innovation is destiny. Right? So that's very important to understand. After, you will see that we have the extension of Unit 1 and 2. We are also increasing our production of isotopes, both cobalt, but also lutetium-177. We just submitted to the CNSC what I call a bounding case, where we are going to be able to accelerate and put almost whatever we want inside the reactor. Meaning there is a big backlog for research and development, where the doctors wanted to test additional isotope, but they just could not do it. Right? Because before it was done in a research reactor. So it's like when you go camping, you're trying to cook dinner with a very small flame. Well, you know that for us, we have the sun. Right? So what was taking 10 years in a research reactor, we do it in 1 week. So the beauty of it is that the more you test, the more you find. Right? So that's very good news for cancer treatment and really getting a breakthrough in terms of therapy. What we're hearing is that nuclear isotopes are going to displace chemo. Right? And unfortunately, I mean, if you're like me, where you had some loved ones who were touched by cancer, chemo is not fun, right? With lots of side effects. The beauty of what we are doing is that there is no side effect. Right? So that's really a game changer in terms of cancer treatment. So we're going to keep investing in it and adding systems. The next one will be added. We've doubled the production on Unit 7. We are going to add one system on Unit 6, and we're going to add one system on Unit 3 also to expand this. Lutetium-177, 1 year ago, you could not access it. Only folks who have a lot of money in the US were able to access this. First, because it was not allowed in Canada, so we got very strong support from the Ford government. So now Pluvicto, the treatment with lutetium-177 2 months ago, was approved in Canada. And before, you could not get it. Well, we produced 400,000 doses just last year. So now it's flowing. Right? Everybody can access to it, and the cost is way down. So that's pretty good. And the last one at the very bottom is Bruce C. So that doesn't mean we are not working on it. It means that's not our priority. And I'm very strong about this, is that we are so busy on time, and I've seen this elsewhere in other organizations. When you start chasing the new shiny object, like Bruce C, you lose focus on what you're doing. So that's not going to happen. We are laser focused on what we're doing, which is improving equipment reliability, delivering our project. And at the same time, we are working in parallel on Bruce C, but with a very, very limited team. Right? And I'm going to show you the schedule for this. So next slide. So that's our life extension. I discussed this. In the picture, you're seeing one of the tools we've added for automation. So it's really, these 8-axis robots that can go a little everywhere. So that's the one reassembling the reactors. Unit 4, we discussed. When I say we are at the peak of asset management, we were planning to spend around 300 million of asset management when the contract was signed every year. Well, we are spending 600 million a year, right? So it's double what we were doing. So what is in asset management? Well, we are changing turbine control from analog to digital. We are changing all the heat exchangers. We are changing all the valves. We are changing cables. We are changing buried piping. We've changed all the transformers, right? So everything that is around the main reactor. So if you go inside Bruce A right now, first you see a lot of people, and there is a lot of work. Right? A lot of work. And extend the life of Unit 1 and 2. As I said, it's very good news also, because that means we are going to demonstrate with the safety authority, with the CNSC and so on, that we can do it again. Right? So that means the ones we are refurbishing right now, well, we could certainly do it again. Right? So the main thing we are going to invest is research and development and making sure we have a good inspection for all the structure, right? The concrete, the foundation, and so on. But so far, so good. And what's very good in our area, our site is the lowest seismic area I've seen in my life. Right? There is almost no earthquake probability in this area, which is very, very good. So that's why we can reuse all the structure and keep changing what's inside. Next slide. Bruce C. So that's kind of a high-level schedule. So right now we are doing the permitting, the impact assessment. I've done this in 13 different countries, this type of permitting and building a new build. I'm telling you, Canada is one of the more complex. Right? With lots of red tape, lots of administration, the federal government giving direction without exactly telling you what they want. Like, for example, they've introduced in the impact assessment the free, prior, and informed consent for the First Nations. Well, nobody is telling us what consent means. So the First Nation believes that consent means veto. Well, it's not veto, but we don't really know what it is. So it's for us to figure out. So we call it pathway agreement with the Sogin Ojibwe Nation. So you're going to hear about this. In fact, that's a critical path of Bruce C. Finding an agreement with the First Nations that will meet the federal government definition, but also getting support from the Sogin Ojibwe Nation, is not only the critical path of the project, but also what could make it happen or not. Right, so that's what's going to happen in the next 2 years in terms of discussion and trying to find this agreement. In parallel, we are looking at the available technologies. So like CANDO, but CANDO is not really ready. There is no new CANDO, so that's a challenge. But we are looking, and you keep this in this room, at copy-pasting Darlington. And our approach with the CNSC is that, well, if Darlington is good enough to be refurbished and operate for 40 years, well, why it's not good enough to rebuild? Right? If it's safe enough to operate for 40 years, well, it should be good enough to get a new one and operate for 40 years. Right? It's kind of the same. So we are discussing this. We are looking at the Westinghouse AP1000. We are looking at the Hitachi ABWR. We are looking at the Koreans, KHNP 1400, and we are looking at the EPR also in parallel. So we are expecting, because it's not only us making these technology decisions, that will be a federal government, government of Ontario decision, but by Q3 2026, we should start seeing some decision in terms of technology so that we can move forward. But one of the key principal parameters to get a decision and get things moving, for example, get a contract with the ISO, will be to have some type of agreement with the Sogin Ojibwe Nation. We can get back to this after. I'm sure you've got lots of questions. Next slide. Cancer fighting medical isotopes. So we are very, very proud of this, obviously. And you can be very proud of this, right? I mean, your work, your legacy, all the work we are doing on site, the reality is that we are saving lives every day, right? You've got folks in the world who are getting their treatment, right? They are getting their treatment thanks to Bruce Power. That's just the reality of it. Right? And they rely on it. So as I said, we are going to accelerate also research and development. Very good support. You don't really see it on the picture, but it's Minister Hodgson, so he's the new Energy and Resources Minister from the federal government. I met him end of June. He was just being appointed. I told him about isotope and that we were going to plan to extend what we are doing, to have, for example, the treatment cell on site. So we are investing to be able to do more on site so that we can ship the treatment faster to the patient, right? Because time is very important because it's a short-lived isotope. And so he said, well, I will come mid-August. So when you have a minister telling you that he will come in 1 month, you say yes, but you don't really believe it. Well, guess what? He came. Right? So isotopes is also giving us a very good support from the government. Next slide. So our commitment, and I will close on this. I saw some caps with Canadian at our core when you were having lunch, so that's very good. And that's part of our strategy, right? There are lots of things we could buy from China, cheaper. That's a reality. Well, we don't do it. We buy this in Canada. So 95% of what we are spending is spent in Canada. You don't have any other industry in Canada, I challenge you, that is able to say that. So first, it's very deliberate, but that's also the beauty of nuclear, right? When I was on a panel last week with some colleagues and so they are investing in wind turbine, in solar and so on. Well, the reality is that when you invest in solar panel, where do you send your money? China, right? All of it. And you've seen lots of cars close to wind turbines or solar panels. Not much, right? So not much jobs after. So that's the beauty of what we are doing. And if we do Bruce C, for example, I mean, I'm sure you're reading the papers with Stellantis moving production to the US, the steel industry in Canada being deeply impacted. When you do new build, what's the first thing you buy? Steel, rebars. So we could produce this directly in Canada, right? So that's also part of the solution we can provide. Supply chain partnership, it's very important. We change our approach. We really have a partnership mindset with our suppliers. Right? Before, we were very transactional, trying to renegotiate every year, every 2 years. We are not doing this. We're giving them visibility. They have at least a 10-year contract with us, and we're working in partnership to make sure that we levelize their workload, but also that they can hire people and retain good people, right? It's very important for them. And so if it's important for them, it's important for us, right? So there is a real partnership mindset that we have developed. Buy local, right? Clean energy frontier, we discuss this. Reconciliation actions. We want BOC to be innovative and to be a true reconciliation new project. And when I say this, our target is that the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation will directly benefit from BOC. Right? So just, between us, what we want is them to be able to access to affordable capital through a loan guarantee from the federal government so that they can directly invest, right? Be an equity partner in BOC. That's what we have in the isotope. They are increasing their shares in our isotope business. So we are going to sign this by December, where they are going to have 250 million of equity inside our isotope business. We want the same type of deal for BOC. So that's what we're after, and isotopes we discussed. So I leave it there. So a lot going on, right? We are super busy, honestly. We are really watching out. The team, people on site are just amazing. Right? I don't know if we always appreciate this. I'm telling you, I've worked in several companies in different countries. The team on site is amazing. It's very important for you, right? Because they are doing an amazing job, and the company is doing well, and again, your pension is doing very well, very well. Thank you. Any question? Yeah.
I have one regarding MCR. Is there enough experience so far to show that there's a single specific point in the schedule that is the most challenging?
So unfortunately, there are several. We tend to think that MCR are equal. They are not. So the scope is different. Like we're replacing all the control boards for Unit 3, which was not the case for Unit 6. So you're changing all the connection. Unit 7, we have a calendar year relief duct challenge that is going to be a challenge. So each time you have a new scope, I would say that's kind of the pinch point, because that's something new. And there will be something new for each and every MCR. Unit 3 really was the high dose rate, right? The dose rate inside the vault was 3 times above Unit 6, which is huge, right? I mean, when we found this out, we just could not refurb Unit 3. Unit 3 was dead, right? And we are looking at laser ablation. All this did not work. So the only way to get the dose low enough was to invent a chemical decontamination. That's been a very, very challenging project. When I had project, I had calls every week on this with Framatome and so on, but that was destiny for us. So I would say each unit is a little different. I think Unit 3 is the most challenging, and some of you in the room know exactly why, but so I think once we are past Unit 3, we are pretty good. But you've got all what we have automated and so on. I'm very confident, right? Because safety is good, because once the tools are in place, well, they operate. Quality was exceptional for the calendar year tubes and so on that we've done with the automated tool. So the remaining challenge will always be safety, and the most challenging in terms of safety evolution from MCR. So one of the most challenging, for example, is the bulkhead installation, because there is lots of lifting, rigging, fitting, welding. That's always challenging in terms of safety. That's always a pretty high risk when you're doing this. So the main risk for us, I would say, with MCR, in fact, that's why I'm telling the team, is complacency. We cannot become complacent. Like every day, we've got 4,000 workers working, and it's high-risk job, right? It's high-risk work. So we need to be at the top of it every day, every shift, every hour. That's our job for the next 8 years, 9 years. We really need to be at the top of it.
Thank you for today. As you for Bruce C., as you plan to do as many activities in parallel as possible, including Indigenous relations and environmental assessments, will you also be approaching the colleges and universities and skilled trades to get them on board multi-years in advance of any future potential operating or construction staff requirements?
Yeah, so definitely, right? It's going to be a construction project, so we need construction workers, we need engineers, so that's something we are discussing with the federal government, with Ontario. Don't know if you saw it, but they are starting to increase the funding to develop the new generation in the trades. What we are doing also is looking ahead, right? Because the trade work, the construction work, is different than it was 30 years ago. When you look at all the automation we are doing for MCR, where we are planning to do the same for BOC. Right? So they also need to be ready for the new technology. If you look at MCR, for example, one of the big challenge was change management, right? I would say the more senior folks, they like what they are doing. They don't really like change. But what we did is we increased the apprenticeship for MCR, also because we wanted to train the next generation and give them the Bruce Power culture, right, from it. And guess what? The younger apprentices and so on, they much prefer playing with the toys remotely than sweating in a plastic suit. And I don't know why, but it's so they've been a very good change engine. So yes, definitely, but also looking ahead for the next generation. Like for example, if you look at engineering, we are investing in digital engineering. Right, with the new tools for engineering, not only to get the benefit right now with what we are doing, but also to prepare the workforce to the next tools, right, to work more efficiently as we are preparing BOC. So yeah, that's a big piece of it. Yeah.
Just on the subject of technology, I was wondering about like the cybersecurity that you'll have to consider. It's getting harder and harder to do that.
Yeah, so that's one of the biggest risks we have, just because it's evolving super fast, right? So I was glad you're going to get some training. There will be some new technologies. So each time we invest, for example, I'm sure you heard about quantum computers. So it's coming. What's interesting is that these quantum computers, they are not good at much right now. There is only one thing they are very good at: cyber. Cracking, the RSA, the old way of encryption for systems. So you got lots of bad organizations, bad guys. They are just harvesting, collecting information on the net right now. They don't know how to crack it, but they know they will. And for us, it's a big risk. So each time we invest in new tools, it's quantum ready, if you want, for this type of encryption and so on. So that's a big risk. When we are moving from analog to digital also, we are increasing the risk of cyber, like turbine control. So our way of doing this is that it's not connected to anything, right? It's fully isolated. After the risk ease more and more, when folks come with phones or connected watches and so on. So that's why if you're visiting, you won't be allowed to bring any of these, right, inside the station. So that's the type of security we are taking. But it's certainly one of the biggest risks we have, mainly because we don't understand it. It's not because we are not working on it. We're working like crazy on this. It's evolving super fast, right? All right, thank you. So have a good afternoon. You okay? Hold on me? Yeah?
I'm okay.
You good?
Yeah. So thanks very much, Eric, for bringing us up to date on what's happening at the Bruce site. It's always interesting, and we always have a interest in what is happening there. Obviously, it impacts us from a pensioner point of view and from a community point of view. If we move along to the next speaker, and Dave Kexers. Oh, they're okay, Dave. Dave's the Vice President of the Bruce Power Local Society. And appreciate him coming today. I'll turn it over to Dave.
Sure, thank you. Welcome, everybody. I got to say I envy all of you because what one pensioner told me was every day is a Saturday. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm hoping it is for myself because, as you can see, I'm getting a little bit gray on the side, so I'll be joining your ranks shortly. But, you know, I've been LVP for about 4 years. Previous to that, it was Mike Gade. I don't know if any of you recall that. Maybe you do. But we represent approximately 1,300 members on site, the professionals, the engineers, the control room shift supervisors, the FLMs in security, maintenance, and operations. And we're a happy partner and a good partner with the business. We're trying to make it successful, but we are also looking out for the pensioners as well. So some of the things we're doing, maybe you've seen this last quarter or thereabouts, we sent out a bargaining survey for our pensioners within the society. That's the first time we've done that. And we recognize the gap that we need to hear from you because as you get older, extended health benefits become important. Your pension is certainly important. And I have to tell you, the pension that we have with Bruce Power is the envy of the other locals within society. So we have a defined benefit plan. We have extended health benefit plan that's second to none. But that didn't happen by itself. It was in a partnership with the company through successive rounds of bargaining. And how are we successful at bargaining? It's members like you when you're in your working lives, the present active members who support us throughout that process. You know, there is a fine balance there between the business need and the needs of our members, and we recognize that during bargaining. So it is exciting times for our local. I don't know if you've passed through Tiverton any time in the last little while, but we purchased a regional office there last year. And you know, before that, we were in possession of the Black and Mac office. I don't know if you're aware, in the corner. We moved over to the old antique shop. Now we're where the Daisy Mart was. So our next evolution will be the Quick Mart across the street. We'll be selling beer to everybody in the neighborhood, but I hope it stops now, and we don't want to go that route. But so we have so much to be thankful for. As I said, that pension is second to none, the health benefits, and living in a fantastic community. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the society has donated over $2 million to local charitable organizations within the community. So, thank you. And some of the examples of that is the Lamont Sports Park in Port Elgin, the Aquatic Center being built in Port Elgin as well. We've contributed significantly to the splash pad in Tiverton itself. And you know, that's one of the most fulfilling roles that I do have, is handing the check over to those charitable organizations and seeing the joy it brings to the members of the community, in particular the children. So that is a highlight for me. We did ratify a one-year agreement this year with the help of the company. We thought it was a prudent thing to do in these uncertain times. But part of that one-year collective renewal was a new concept for extended health benefits, which is the FACET program. So working with Monica Ornell and Karen Smith to present that to our membership for the very first time in November. And what it entails is our active members are allowed to put their vacation time, bank time, and floaters into a benefit plan that enhances what we already have. So let's say we have a copay for massage therapy. Now the active members have the ability to have a dollar amount put into that bank and spent where they see the need for their families are. We see that as a net benefit for our members. We see that as a net benefit for the company, because as we know, extended health benefits are a huge liability. So we'll see how it goes. I'll report out next year if I come here, and we'll see if it's a success or not. I suspect it will be. The other thing I'd like to address is the bargaining survey itself. So you're going to see another one come out for the society members sometime in the new year. So believe it or not, we're going to be into bargaining again in the fall of 2026. We've done a lot of work right now up until this point, but we need still to do a lot more work to get it through to the finish line. So we really encourage all the society members to fill out the survey because we want to hear what the greatest needs are for our pensioners. We were also successful with the help of the company negotiating a new classification, a job classification called term employee. So what we saw was a lot of our jurisdictional work was being done by contractors through no fault of their own. I mean, everyone needs a job, but they had tenuous employment. So we got together the company, negotiated a new classification that allows these people to have certainty for the next 5 to 10 years. And we see that as a pipeline for full-time employment in the future for some of these younger folks who are in those classifications. And we're rapidly approaching 1,400 members within our local, which is exciting news for us. And over and above that, society as a whole is getting close to the 11,000 mark. Next week, I'm going out to the Canadian Nuclear Association convention in Saskatchewan, Saskatoon in particular, because society sees fertile ground to expand out west. Nuclear is going to become a viable option in the near future out west, and we want to be part of that, the professional side. So in closing, I want to applaud each and every one of you, because I know you are the foundation on what our collective agreement is today. Your involvement in that process, your membership engagement, which carries on even today with the present membership, is integral to our bargaining process. So thank you for attending today and giving me the time to speak.
Thanks very much, Dave. Appreciate that. Yeah, just to build on what Dave said, society approached us earlier this year and were interested in what our concerns are from a pensioner point of view regarding benefits. So we developed a questionnaire and we sent it out to all of you folks, and took the responses and fed it back to the society. So I'm glad to hear they're going to do that again. It's I think we feel it's important that you hear from the pensioners. We used to provide that information a number of years ago, but it just sort of slid by the way, and the society at that point weren't looking for that information from us, but now they are, so that's great. And I can say the same thing with the PWU. We used to provide them with input, but the last few years they've chosen not to ask for that information, unfortunately. So still got some work to do on them. And again, I appreciate Dave coming out today. It's been a few years since we've heard from the society, and I know the leadership has changed, and that's great that Dave's coming out. We also invite the PWU, but they weren't available today, so therefore there's nobody here from the PWU. And with that, I guess I should turn it over to Kevin from talking about the pension plan and how well it's performing. And I think Karen is going to say a few words too.
Great. Thanks, Doug, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. Always enjoy coming today to continue to share some good news. But Doug, what I wanted to start with was some of your opening comments. If I understand the numbers right, there was a Scognac breakfast and you said 200 people, right? Okay, so not that I keep score, but I'm pretty sure the Kelly lunch was at least 400 today, right? Yeah, okay, all right, so, right? Okay, we're good. But anyway, great to see everyone. Geez, what a difference makes, right? You think about, from a sports perspective, a couple Blue Jays fans in the crowd today. Blue Jays are well deep into the playoffs. The Leafs are, so off to somewhat of a start. It's looking somewhat hopeful for the Bills, so not a bad spot to be as a Bills, Leafs, and Jays fan today. Great update from Eric. I always look at it from a pension plan perspective. You've got a healthy operating company that's sitting beside the plan. Being part of the team that negotiated that life extension facility back in 2016, and you think about, okay, what life would be like 10 years from now as you're putting all the contractual provisions in place, as you think about what life would look like with now 2 MCRs in parallel. You got the height of the asset management program, and you take away from Eric's update today. We planned, we prepared, and now we're well into to execution. We'll get to the pension plan update, but I think the other important piece here is when you look at it from just the overall risk profile of the business right now, it's in a really good spot, right? And I spent most of last week, this time of year, we meet with all of our insurance underwriters to put the insurance program in place, both for the operating part of the business as well as our insurance for the construction MCR program. And much like we've seen when we go to the markets to issue new bonds for Bruce Power, I've got more and more interest every year now with underwriters coming to the table to say, hey, we want to participate in that insurance program. And that's a really good news story, because people have really took the time to not only understand the risk profile of insuring a utility within the nuclear industry, but have also paid attention to what's happened with Bruce Power. And whenever I speak, I talk about the secret sauce in Ontario right now. I mean, for years, and I think we all were used to hearing the stories that nuclear projects cannot be delivered on time and on budget. And one of the benefits we all recognize within the industry that we have operated within is our ability to share information, and that sharing of information and our ability to see both ourselves and Darlington successful with our refurbishments and MCRs is paying dividends, right? And that's why Sizewell C, for example, in the UK, has now been able to reach FID. It's because of examples and people having the confidence. You've got a Quebec pension plan, think about it, in Canada here, investing money in Sizewell C as part of that new build project. So it's fantastic to see from all those perspectives. We were here, I think it was November last year, so a little later than normal. I think most of you have had a chance to review the 2024 year in review, but a couple of key takeaways: a very strong financial year, both in terms of the actual asset performance itself, but more importantly, and Linda, I'll talk about it a bit later, is just our funding ratios. If you go back to 10 years ago, we're in this very room and we're talking about solvency ratios well below 100%, right? We're introducing to this group this concept of we will now have letters of credit as an asset within the pension plan. And it was designed right from the start using those LCs or those letters of credit as a hedge against interest rates, because obviously they were for a long time at historical lows. So, fast forward to the valuation that we did at the beginning of this year. We've got a going concern ratio close to 128%. You've got a solvency ratio well above 105%, and the combination of both actually trigger a provision under the Income Tax Act with the CRA that says if you're above those limits as a pension plan, you are now in a mandatory contribution holiday. Not a voluntary, but a mandatory, and it was really driven off of the overall health, the growth of those ratios, and at the same time, we're also in a position where we can remove those letters of credit as well. So a long way, a really, really good news story in terms of the overall health of the plan. We stood here a year ago, and we were at that point, I think in November, close to 10% return. We ended up with just over 13% return on the assets last year, and it's a great result. We've talked about the changes that we've made, the diversification we've made. we'll spend a bit of time on that this afternoon. All those elements have really paid off and allowed us to drive increased performance. Now, if you look ahead to 2025, just go to the next page. Again, very strong performance year to date. When you look at the asset performance through the end of September, just above 7.5%. Took a quick look this morning. I think we can all read the papers. Again, some positive news in the markets these days. Year to date, as of this morning, just over 8%. We talked about some of the other tools in the toolkit. We introduced to the team here last year this concept of an LDI, or a liability-driven investment strategy. And again, think of that as a hedge against discount rates. And again, it's performing as intended. It's a very common structure that is used by a number of pension plans out there, and is just one of many tools in the toolkit that we use to manage the ratios going forward. We took some steps a couple of years ago on our fixed income portfolio to move to what we call a long core plus bond program. So think of this as actively managing fixed income. Those managers have done extremely well for us across. We have 3 of them. All of them have beat their benchmark indices. And the last one here is the infrastructure portfolio. And again, one of those alternative asset classes that we have transitioned into over the last 5 or 6 years. One of the benefits with infrastructure is its strong cash flows that have inflationary protection within them. I have a natural bias towards infrastructure. If you look at Bruce Power, Bruce Power is effectively an infrastructure asset for OMERS as a pension plan. And when we talk to these managers, when we look at the investments, when we look at the way that they optimize those assets, there's a lot that we can help shape their thinking, the way we collaborate with some of their ideas. And a lot of that comes through the way that we grew this business over the last 25 years. So for us, it's been a great win-win being able to share some of our learnings as an infrastructure asset with their managers, and then obviously taking advantage of the expertise that they bring to the table as well. So in terms of just a quick update on the next page, which is our investment strategy. So, good governance. Most large plans will do an asset liability study every 3 years. We've talked about this before. Our AL study was refreshed earlier this year. And again, think of the term assets, liabilities. You're projecting out thousands of scenarios over multiple years, looking at liability growth under certain economic conditions, looking at asset growth under certain economic conditions. And the whole idea is there any changes that you should be making to your asset allocation to favorably line up with your liability projections? And so we made a few tweaks this year. We've outlined them there. I think that the most notable one is really thinking hard about reducing our equity exposure. So we did that on a global equity basis. We've taken a hard look at where do we want to sit over the next 5 to 6 years, maybe 5 to 10 years from a real estate perspective. Just some of the pullback that we've seen on the real estate side. We were originally going to go up to 12%. We've left it at 7%. And really effectively the difference in a lot of pension plans you see are moving in this direction is an increased allocation to private debt. And we've got a new partner, a really strong firm. The firm is called Stepstone. We completed due diligence. We talked to a number of other pension plans, very happy with their performance, gives us a great diversification across a number of debt opportunities. And good news is the committee's approved it, the board's approved it, and we're actually meeting with them tomorrow to start the transition. One other final comment on the remaining equity book. We continue to have a number of active managers. We monitor the performance of those active managers. We pay them to outperform the index, and we made a choice last year to terminate Manning and Napier. It's not a decision we take lightly. It's not a decision we look at 1 year or 2 year. It's really 5+ years, and they were just struggling. And so we said, let's terminate Manning and Napier. And then the question is, do we put that money back into another active manager? Or you know what? If you look at what the asset liability study is doing, when you look at what a lot of larger pension plans are doing these days, is really finding a mix between active and index funds. So we actually partnered up with TD Asset Management, and we have a index strategy that we have in place with them now. So very positive move, definitely in the right direction, and I think that's really, our key responsibility is making sure we've got the right managers that are performing for what we pay them to do, and if they're not, then we take action, and I think that was definitely the right decision in this case. So I reflected over the last couple of years in terms of how we present the material, the updates we give, and I think folks would agree a picture is worth 1,000 words. And what I'd like to do is just spend a couple minutes. Steve Marcotte, who's part of the investment team here, spends a lot of time with our infrastructure managers, and I think really just given the group a sense of the type of underlying investments we now have the ability to invest. So when we say we're investing in infrastructure assets, what does that actually mean? And so Steve's put together a couple slides for us today, and I think it's worth just spending a bit of time understanding what those opportunities look like. And again, they've been a big part of the success of our asset performance over the last couple of years. So Stephen.
Thanks, Kevin. So infrastructure is very important to the pension plan, your pension plan. About 20% of the plan's assets are invested in infrastructure, which is why we want to make this a little bit more real for you. During or prior to lunch, I was speaking with many of you, and it sounds like a lot of you are traveling, which is great to hear. So let's go on a vacation together, and I can explain to you and show you some of the infrastructure that the pension plan has an interest in. Next slide. So you decided to go on vacation, and before the trip, you realized you needed some new luggage, maybe a neck pillow for the flight. Whatever it is you're buying, if it comes from some Asian country, it is coming into Canada through the Port of Vancouver. And your pension plan has interests in 2 container ports in the Port of Vancouver. Port of Vancouver is Canada's biggest port, by the way, 4th largest port in North America. Port of Vancouver moves about 3.5 million containers a year, and the interest that you have in the Port of Vancouver, that's actually also what we moved, about 3.5 million containers a year. So the stuff you're getting is coming in through this port, and the importance to Canada of the port can't be understated. If you look at, for example, Carney's 32 nation-building projects, 5 of those are ports, right? Very, very important in terms of being able to trade internationally and Canada's economy. So you bought a bunch of stuff that you needed for the trip, maybe some gifts for the grandkids while you're at it. It's coming through the Port of Vancouver. Next slide, please. So you've got all your stuff. You're now going to take a flight to wherever it is you need to go. Your luggage might be going into one of those aluminum cases that goes in the belly of the aircraft. So again, the pension plan has an interest in Uniload. These are containers that essentially service a number of different airlines around the world at major airline hubs. And the Uniload is the type of business where, the airline can't be bothered. They want to focus on the core of running the airline, running the aircraft and the crews. So they leave the container job to somebody else. So the rates of return for this type of business is very, very good. We're looking at, kind of 15, 16% rates of return just by leasing aluminum containers to the airlines when they need them. So very, very attractive. Keep going. You finally get to your destination. You now need to get on a road. You rented a car, you got an Uber, whatever it is, you've got to travel. You might be hitting a toll road on that route. So the pension plan has interests in toll roads around the world, primarily the United States, Mexico, a few South American countries, Europe, and a couple in India. What's really, really nice about toll roads, first off, we don't, whatever your politics, your interests are, whatever you're driving, whether it's the Corvette or whether it's, an electric vehicle, it doesn't matter. If you're on a toll road, they'll have to pay the toll, right? Toll roads are very strong inflation indexed assets. The toll roads continually go up, in most jurisdictions more than once a year. So inflation index, which helps us pay your inflation index pension. Rates of return on toll roads have been very strong while the pension plans own them. The more core toll roads in the United States are going to get 12 to 15% rates of return. Some of the other areas where there's fast growing populations or populations that are fast being able to afford vehicles, you're looking at 16 to 18% rates of return. Again, very strong returns, inflation indexed, and some of the technology that some of our toll roads are experimenting with is, you can see that the van on the top left corner, essentially charging infrastructure built into the highway. So when you are driving an electric vehicle down the highway, you're charging as you drive, which I think is pretty fascinating. Like, that's, the future is here today type stuff. So toll roads aren't just the road. There's a lot of other value added opportunities that they're experimenting with to further add value to the asset. Next slide, thank you. So you finally got to your destination. Maybe your destination is you're gonna take a cruise out of the Port of Miami. If you're taking specifically a Royal Caribbean cruise, then the cruise terminal, your pension plan has an interest in that cruise terminal. So essentially, Royal Caribbean wanted to devote their time, their effort, their money to building these ever increasingly fabulous cruise ships. So they said, we need an infrastructure manager to help us just buy all of the cruise terminals and operate them for us. So that's what the interest that your pension plan has. The cruise terminal is a great, great business. They operate that is a massive, I don't know if you've ever been to this cruise terminal, it's huge, right? They operate that building with 6 employees, up from 3 a few years ago. I said, let's get a couple more. 6 people operate this. And the cruise terminal gets paid per passenger. So every time you're going through this terminal, you're essentially funding a little bit of your own pension plan. This has been so successful for not only the infrastructure manager and our pension plan, but also Royal Caribbean, that they're now building cruise terminals in a number of other places, right? Another Caribbean location, Mexico, Spain, Italy. They're just going to keep rolling this out, which again is really, it's positive because there's a lot of tailwinds behind this industry, right? The cruise ships are getting bigger, they're moving more passengers through, more and more people are cruising, hopefully many of you in here. So just wanted to highlight some of those assets that the pension plan has an interest in. And as you can see, infrastructure is more than just, roads, sewer, water, electricity. It's kind of hidden, and it might not be in places that you think about, but it's really hard to not be touching it day to day, no matter what you're doing. So that being said, I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Thank you. I thought it would be great just to bring some of this to life, but it really puts into perspective, the opportunities that are out there, right? And that's where, we spend our time. It's important to note we're not, we don't have direct investments in these. We have an investment in a fund that has, a number of these infrastructure type assets. But, our goal is to go out there, find the best of the best. And, what gives us that opportunity, is the longevity of the plan, right? And, different story back in 2016 where, there was uncertainty until we life extended the facility to go out and change that asset strategy. So, as I said earlier, I do have, a natural bias to infrastructure. It's like any part of the portfolio, you diversify, you own part of it, but there's some really, really neat opportunities that are out there that, we'll continue to take advantage of. We talked briefly earlier about the overall funded status. I just want to give Linda a minute to take us through that in a bit more detail, and then we'll close out with Monica and Karen. So Linda, over to you.
Thank you. And Dwight, you can actually just go to the next slide. I'll just focus on that one. So yeah, so Kevin, so you've heard the punchline. That's the word I'm looking for. It is in a really solid funded status. What we have here, and we've shown this graph lots of years, so it's not the first time that we've used this, but really shows the improvement in the trend in the funded ratio. So just as a bit of a backgrounder, just to refresh everybody, there's two different ways we look at those funded ratios. One is I'd call it the short-term view. It's the solvency status. It's that worst case, what if the plan had to wind up today and pay out everybody's benefits that they'd earned so far? That's that solvency valuation. And we're now sitting at 109% on that solvency funded status. That's the short-term view. And very prescribed basis as to how you measure that. And so the strong asset returns have helped to improve that, as well as we are in that higher interest rate environment compared to several years ago, where several of you reminded me today, where we're down in the 60% on that solvency ratio. So we now are up to 109%, and as Kevin already mentioned, that's without any letters of credit supporting it. So certainly, you know, the letters of credit in the lower interest rate environment helped us support that funded status, and we're a really successful tool. And I would say, working as intended and as designed under pension legislation, that's why we've been able to wind those down to zero at this point in time. And then on the other hand, we also look at it from a going concern basis, and that's the top line on this graph, and we're sitting at 128%. So very long-term focused. And the way I like to remind people about this is, so this is taking a long-term view, saying all of our pensioners keep receiving their pensions. Then the pension goes to the survivor for their lifetime. We get those annual indexation increases for cost of living. And then this, on the same side of the house, all the people that are currently working, they've all earned some portion of their pension, and they're eventually going to receive that for their lifetime in indexation increases. So all of that's taken into consideration, and that's what that's telling us, is we have 128%. So for everything that's been earned so far, we're well secured, and we've got enough money set aside to cover those earned pensions. So that's what those two valuations are telling us. And the other little nugget I'll just give you around the going concern valuation is, there's just a couple of other little things to think about is, of course, it's all based on a set of assumptions. How long are people going to live? What is inflation going to be? There's all kinds of assumptions that go into it. But the other thing that does go into it as well is we do have, it's this term called margin for adverse deviation. Means somewhere along the way, some of the assumptions aren't going to work out exactly as expected. So even with that 128%, that includes a bit of a buffer for things not going exactly as planned. So just to give some color on what that funded status means. The other thing that Kevin mentioned is now we've been able to reduce those letters of credit, and we're even in, according to the CRA, what's called an excess surplus position, which is basically saying once you're above 125% funded and you've got a really good solvency funded status, then you have excess surplus. And so you actually, that's what Kevin alluded to, it's called the contribution holiday, which is, just to use that terminology, what that means is for the next year, for all of our people who are still working, they're all earning another year of pension, so there's a cost associated with that. And by mandatory contribution holiday, what that means is the CRA says the company needs to pause on their contributions, so effectively use a little bit of that surplus to fund the next year's contributions. That's what a contribution holiday is around covering that ongoing service cost. So that's what that means and that terminology that gets thrown around. And the other piece that I think about for this update for you, because this is of course information as of January 1st, it's kind of 10 months out of date. That this is what's been conveyed in the annual report and that annual update to the tripartite committee that we do in the spring. And so we continue to monitor, and picked up from Eric's conversation today around complacency. Just because we're in a great funded status doesn't mean we take our foot off the pedal and do anything less that we're doing every other year. You know, all the diversification and LDI, all of those things that Kevin was talking about. So we're still doing that and looking at all those things. And the other little thing I thought of when we're talking about that is, you know, depending on if you're reading in the news, the Canadian Institute of Actuaries may release a new mortality table, which is their assumption about how long are people going to live. And these things come out from time to time. But that's just an example of that. In particular, was one of the assumptions that we reviewed this year when we did the valuation. How is the assumption? Is it realistic? Do we need to update it? And we did strengthen it. And so those are the kinds of things going on behind the scenes as well that we're continuing to monitor and tweak and adjust and make sure that we're keeping on track. And so as part of that monitoring, we are monitoring the funded status every month. We don't officially measure the funded status again until January 1st. And then in May, we'll give the update to the tripartite committee. And next year in October, we'll be here telling you about what the funded status was on January 1st, 2026. But so far this year, with the strong asset returns, we have seen still the strong funded position holding up until this part of the year. So things have been really going well this year so far. And that's really the end of the update. For Monica now.
That's great. Thank you very much. I'm here now to talk about you and what some of these impacts are for yourself. So we now have determined the annual pensioner indexation. And so as of January the 1st, 2026, it will be an increase by 1.8% for yourself. And so you'll see that in January, and you will get a memo explaining that difference for you in those details. So you'll see that in mid-December, generally around the holiday season, you'll see those come out. All of the information that was just discussed from Linda and Kevin can be found in the annual report to members. So if you didn't get a copy, it is available on the pension portal, but you can also grab a hard copy that we have here. So you're welcome to come and get a copy of that to have for your ongoing reference and review. Also wanted to just come back and talk about the benefit program. So we've had a couple mentions about that today. Last year we spoke about the portal changes in Green Shield, so really changing from that fluorescent green to more this deep green. So just wanted to bring that back to you and just really remind you that this is a resource available for you all the time, 24-hour, 7 days a week. You can access how you're doing in terms of your spending on the plan, where you're at in terms of your maximums. You can understand on the left-hand side how much of that annual maximum you may be up to. You can get a soft copy of your benefit card if you're requiring that or need to go to a new pharmacy. So that's a good resource to have. If anyone uses a digital wallet, you can save those to your digital wallet so you don't have to go into the portal to get it. So you can look at those resources. And there, you can also look up providers. So maybe you're staying with a family member in your different community and you're looking for an available provider, you can use the provider lookup tool that's there. And you'll find reputable vendors that are available for you there. So it's a great resource and I ask you to pop into there when you have a moment. The other resource is the well-being platform. So while you're on the Green Shield portal, you can spend some time working on learning and tracking your health status. So the Change for Life resources are now called Green Shield Well-being. And this is where you can get reminders for prescription renewals. You can take health risk assessments to see how your health status is doing. You can do quizzes and education, and you can also access counseling. So there's a lot of different resources that are available in here to help with your preventative health. So I encourage you to take a look in there, see what's available in terms of articles, resources, and programs, and any of the items such as counseling that's available through this platform can be directly billed through the plan as well, right from this one source. So I encourage you to take a look here for you. And just want to take a couple of moments to remind you about some resources and updates. We've recently updated a new mental health resource for the Pensioners Association. And so you'll see this available online on the Pensioners website. So it gives you quick access to the available mental health resources on the one side that are available if you're a member of the benefit plan. And on the opposite are the community resources that are available to all of your friends and family. So it's a great resource to have at your fingertips. And we have some printed copies here today. And also want to take a few moments to remind you about your life insurance beneficiary. If anyone has maintained retiree life insurance, it's important to keep your beneficiary status up to date with us. So if you haven't done so in a while, or you're looking at doing your annual planning for your financial planning, please do consider an update and a review. And we do have copies of those beneficiary forms here if you'd like to take one home with you. And finally, just a reminder to keep us up to date if you're moving. It really is important that we know where you're living so that we can get you information to your home. So our system at Bruce Power is the system of record. So we do ask that you contact our HR help desk at brucepower.com if you do have an update to make. And that transfers over to CIBC for your pension payments and such like that. So please do ensure you keep us updated here. And to close off, I'll pass it to Karen Smith.
Thank you. So thanks, Monica, and thanks to Linda and Stephen and Kevin. I'm honored to be here today. This was my first pension association meeting. I hope I get invited back. I am a proud daughter of a pensioner. I'll make sure my dad comes next time. I called him on the way here, so he knows that he will be coming next time. But one of the things that I wanted to share just as the head of HR is your input is still very, very important to us. And just as Dave said in getting the input, we really want to hear from you. Just as we deeply care about our employees working on site, we care about everyone who's worked on site. So, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know how we can continue to make your experience as pensioners better and really evolve together. So just reach out. We're very open, and we're honored to be able to share this information with you today.
So what we didn't tell Karen before she came today is because it's her first meeting, she gets all the tough questions. So do we have any questions based on the updates?
Thank you very much. Great presentations. Thank you. And great job, by the way. How do we Trump-proof the plan?
So the question is, how do we Trump-proof the plan? So, if you look at them, I'll use the Maple 8 as an example. All right, so Canada's largest 8 pension plans all have been very vocal on looking at opportunities to repatriate money back into Canada. And I think it starts with opportunities to invest. You look at the infrastructure examples, so Port of Vancouver, great. More toll roads in Canada, yeah, would love the opportunity. More airports, opportunity to invest. You think of all the infrastructure opportunities that we're investing around the world that, if we can get, red tape removed, we can start moving on opportunities to build out infrastructure, start, trading with other partners. That'll give, whether it's us or other pension plans, the opportunity to move money back into Canada. I think that's the challenge right now is where are those investable opportunities? If you look at Mark Carney, you look at his previous role in setting up emerging markets around the world. Not saying that Canada obviously is not an emerging market, but there are certain elements by which you can do that and you can create opportunities, and with those opportunities will drive opportunities to invest. So that would be my thinking right now, and I think we, like anybody, are watching the papers every day to see where things go. Yeah. Go ahead, Neil.
Just to add to that, I think one of the best examples that Eric gave us was 95% purchase of Canadian materials, products to support our industry.
100%, and Steve and I actually have a meeting on Monday with our private equity manager. Our private equity manager is HarborVest, and that's one of the questions on the table, Neil, is when you look at maybe not necessarily the tier 1 suppliers, but if you look at all the tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers that would traditionally have private equity supporting them, how are they thinking about it? Where are those opportunities? Whether it's in Canada, whether it's in the case that's in front of us right now in the UK with Sizewell C, a lot of great companies and a very large investable universe. So you're spot on with the thinking there. Yeah.
And just along those lines, we've been reading about data centers, and there was some conversations about having a data center at Bruce Power. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, the way I would think about a data center on site, that strategy really comes together as we think about what does the offtake contract look like for Bruce C, right? When you look at all the power that goes off of Bruce A and Bruce B right now, it's sold to the ISO and to the Ontario market. You know, you looked at all the various swim lanes for Bruce C that Eric talked about. You know, one of the swim lanes that my team's looking at is how do we finance it and what's the commercial offtake arrangement. And if you think about, is there a part of that power that comes off at Bruce C to feed a company that's going to ultimately support a data center, then I think that's, you know, probably the best thinking at this stage, Heather, is build that into the arrangement as we create that additional power. Good question. Yeah. Same question on. Yeah, no, I think when you look at Eric's list of priorities, there's probably another small print line called other growth. That's certainly front and center with both TC and OMERS right now, and it'll be subject to our strategy discussion with the board next year. So not lost upon us. You know, it's very, very important in terms of what Eric said. There's a number of examples in the industry where you are chasing that shiny object and you get distracted, but we also know there's windows of opportunity, and that's clearly one that we don't want to lose sight of. But how do we prioritize and rank it? So, yeah.
Great, thank you. On one of the slides, it was showing the current position at 109 and 128, but I noticed that just maybe 24 or 36 months before that, there was quite a bit of volatility. And I'm wondering if maybe you could speak a little bit to some of the volatility that was in there.
Yeah, and so the question was, if we look back over the last 3 or 4 years on some of the volatility, it's always a combination of where did we end the year from both an asset performance perspective and a discount rate, because these are all measured at December 31st. So, you know, that's the other added protection. When you think about what Linda described, is we just don't set it and ignore it. So we're doing two things. One, we're monitoring it each month. And then two, you know, we'll snap the line again December 31st, and there'll be a full valuation that's done on the 1st of January again, just for that very reason to say, you know, you're not going to take, you know, a period of not doing valuations for 3 years. We're going to continue to do a valuation each year just to be mindful of some of that interplay that can take place, and it'll be driven off of whatever the December 31st performance was on the asset side, and you could see a change in discount rates in that last fourth quarter that could, you know, swing the ratio one way or another. Okay, Doug, back to you. Great, thank you.
Yeah, I guess I want to thank all our guests today. It's, I think we all find it fairly enlightening when we see what's happening at Bruce Power, and we're certainly a lot of interest in the pension plan, and it's been good news for the last couple of years, and that's great. All I can do is encourage you to keep doing the same. We're supposed to get out of here at 3:30, so that gives me 40 minutes to talk. But I don't think I'll do that. But I think we recognize that this is an exciting time for the nuclear industry in Ontario. The government's had a number of plans, and the Affordable Energy Act, Powering Ontario Growth Plan, Integrated Energy Plan, all looking at the future and what we need from electricity in the province. So they really outline quite well what the needs are over the next 25 years to 2050. The interesting thing that came out, I found, is they're forecasting that energy is going to increase by at least 75% in the next 25 years by 2050. So if you think about that, it's 75%, and I've read some reports that say it's going to double. So where the hell does that come from, right? How do we get there? And I don't think there's any solution. It will take an increase of various types of power, whether it be solar, wind, gas, hydroelectric, and certainly nuclear. And that's including small modular reactors, which are happening in Darlington as we speak. But if we double nuclear's current capacity today, we still wouldn't meet the projections of 2050. Now, all of these reports, I find it quite comforting that the government recognized the efforts Bruce Power has been doing over the years. And they certainly mentioned the life extension and major component replacement program. And they also mentioned the potential of refurbishing units 1 and 2, which we haven't heard a lot of talk about. But even doing that, it still isn't enough to provide the power they're going to need by 2050. Hence the discussion on Bruce C. And Eric touched on this, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but the government launched a plan or pre-development work in 2023 looking at the next large-scale nuclear plant in Ontario. And think of it, there hasn't been one since 1993. That's the last plant we built, which was Darlington. So they Bruce Power immediately started to work to prepare a case for a 4,800 megawatt plant on the Bruce site. But there is no guarantee this will happen. Other sites are also under consideration. This is a multi-year process. There's not going to be a decision made in the next year or two. So it'll be a multi-year process before any decision is made. But Bruce Power formed a Bruce C team who are working on this right now. They've completed the planning phase of the impact assessment, and there's a number of steps to get before they make a decision. The impact assessment is only the first step, and they've completed the planning phase of that first step. But there are many steps in the process. They are going to be moving on to public involvement or public engagement, and I expect it's the largest stakeholder group of Bruce Power, the Bruce Power Pensioners Plan people, will be encouraged to participate. So I expect they'll be approaching us to participate in the public portion of the plan. So forewarned, we'll be coming to you to look for you to support the Bruce C effort. And obviously it's in our best interest to support Bruce Power in this effort. They not only need our support, but support in the community is critical. We should do whatever we can to encourage support for Bruce C. And I find it also comforting that locally, 86% of the local community feels expansion is good for the community, and 93% feel Bruce Power operates safely. Those are really staggering numbers, and I dare anyone to come up in any other community in Ontario and with any numbers anywhere close to that. So this Bruce C obviously will create more opportunities for development here in at home. So going back a few years when the MCR process started, Bruce Power and Bruce County created the Nuclear Innovation Institute when the life extension program was first announced. Since then, other major nuclear suppliers have become founding members. So the major suppliers, I won't name them all, but ES Fox, BWTX, etc., are founding members of the NII. And the NII's role really is to leverage the money being spent on refurbishment to benefit our local communities. if you look at previously when these sites were developed, the vast majority of the money was certainly not coming to our local communities, but going south and into the Greater Toronto area, Kitchener area, those types of things. Since the life extension program started, the number of local suppliers has gone from 6 to over 60. And that's a result of the NII work on promoting our local communities. I always admired Mike Renchuk. Whenever he was meeting with a new nuclear supplier, he always started off with, well, we'll have our first meeting here at the Bruce site, but then I expect our next meeting to be at your facility here locally. And that certainly sent a message to all the major suppliers that they better start opening up some local facilities here and employ local people and put money into the community. And that's certainly grown tremendously since that time. There's also been a huge effort to promote trades locally. In other words, keep our kids home so they don't have to move to Toronto or wherever south of us, but they can actually find good paying jobs here locally. It's good for the community. It's good for Bruce Power because they have local people that are going to stay in the community. And the NII has certainly spent a lot of effort on that. We as an association also are tied into the NII. When they first were created, we sat down and created a memorandum of understanding to support NII in their efforts. So we have spent some of our resources in working with NII on various projects that come up. We continue to do that. They now have a team called the Clean Energy Frontier Steering Committee, and Bruce Power Pensioners, I represent them and sit on that committee. It's primarily economic development people and local politicians who are talking about, again, how do we leverage the money Bruce Power is spending so that it benefits our communities to the maximum that we can out of that. So I want to really wrap up quickly. We expect we'll hear from Bruce support for Bruce C, and we certainly want to do that. We want to support NII because they're really working hard to get as much local development as they can in our communities, and that's good for all of us. As an example, in Saugeen Shores, they have an industrial park just devoted to clean energy companies. So this is an industrial park that is just basically built around the nuclear industry and encouraging suppliers to set up here. So I think it's in all our best interest to certainly support that. And obviously we want to continue supporting Bruce Power and their efforts on Bruce C, and we hopefully that'll come to fruition sooner than later. And with that, I'll wrap up really early. Sorry. We have one other presentation, which I'd forgotten entirely. Kevin Lanester, who leads our travel team, just wants to talk about what we're proposing or looking at for next year. So why don't we turn it over to Kevin. Sorry about that, Kevin.
Thanks, Doug. He just ruined my opening line. I was going to say he puts me last because he knows that's the talk you really want to hear. Now we know why I'm last. If you could proceed to the next slide. Oh, you've got it. That's the right one. Sorry, back. Before I start, I want to say it's a great honor to have Kevin Kelly and his team be my opening act on travel. That was unexpected. I have two personal takeaways. Seeing those aluminum containers reminds me I got to get new luggage, so thank you. And now if I ever travel to the US and I go through those toll booths that I absolutely hate, I'll have a smile because it's improving my pension plan. So thank you very much. I want to talk to you about travel in 2025, 2026, and 2027. All these trips are brought to you by the work of the Travel Committee and our tour operators, Ellison and Bruce Blows and Stewart. Bruce is our contact with them. We can go to the next slide, please. In 2025, we had 3 trips. We had a 4th, but thanks to Donald Trump, we decided not to go to the US, so it was canceled. 2 trips have been completed very successfully, Croatia, PEI, and Ile de la Madeleine. The last trip, we have a group of about 16 people going to Italy in 6 days. So we're all allowed to be jealous that they're going, but we wish them the best trip because I saw the presentation on it. It looks phenomenal. Next slide, please. Oh, no, sorry, you've got it. For 2026, sorry, I have trouble reading the slides. For 2026, we have 4 locations that we're traveling based on your survey results. I've got an update because we've got both companies working hard on the itinerary for those trips. We expect the itineraries to be out in the next 2 to 3 weeks, so you'll have an email. You'll be able to read and decide which trip you want to go on. As part of their work, they've given me some updates, so I wanted to provide a little bit of information to you. The battlefield tour of northern France, Belgium, and Holland, that was intended to be sort of the first week of May. It's now looking like it's going to be April 30th. The change allows us to get to Holland at the end of tulip season. So you might actually get to see a few tulips. If we went a week later, everything closes up. So April 30th in about 14 days. The trip to British Columbia, the best time to travel to British Columbia is June. Everyone will tell you that. Great weather, not a lot of crowds, not the height of fire season, so it's a really great time, except for 2026. We have the FIFA World Cup in Vancouver. We don't want to be anywhere near Vancouver or Toronto when that happens. So they've moved the trip to May 19th. It'll still be in 2 parts. If you want to go on both parts, that's great. If you want to go on the first part, that's also great. So you'll travel, spend 2 days in Kelowna, 2 days in Vancouver, 2 days in Victoria, and if that's enough for you, you leave for Toronto on May 26th. If you want to continue to the second part, you will go on to Tofino, which is the northern end of Vancouver Island. You've got old growth forests, you've got beaches, you've got wildlife, you've got great restaurants. It's ideal if you want to just relax. It's also ideal if you want to be active. So that part will be an additional 4 days. You'd leave back for home on May 30th. The only one that we may not have the brochure out for in 2 to 3 weeks is Niagara on the Lake. The Shaw Festival has put out a list of their plays, and we've actually chosen one. We decided that a comedy would be a great thing to do on that trip. So we've chosen a play by Ray Cooney and John Hilton. It's a British farce called One for the Pot. It was last put on that we know of in 2017 at Drayton. Rave reviews. People said that it was just laugh out funny. So it should be a great one. But they do not have the calendar that shows when these plays are going to be put on. So the Ellison cannot put together any itinerary until it's out. We expect that will be about November 1st, so that could be a little delayed. Now I left the last one for a reason. It's the one that everyone wants to hear. It's about the train trip around Switzerland. The itinerary is temporarily set up. They're actually going about and booking all the trains and all the rooms. It's looking like you will leave Toronto on September 8th if you want to go on this trip. And you will get into Zurich on September 9th and start your train trip. Looks like it's going to be great, but I'll warn you, it's going to be about $10,000, right? So be prepared. It is not a cheap trip to go to Switzerland. Could I have the next slide, please? Now, we've started looking at trips for 2027, and we've come up with some trip possibilities that we'll put out in surveys for you to actually decide what you want to do. Lowe's and Stewart will be looking at our trips within Canada, and we've made a concerted effort this time to manage the cost. And we can do that within Canada because there are places we can go to that are fairly reasonably priced. And we're doing this because the general preference survey that we put out told us that there is a critical price range. If we price things at $10,000 or more, only about 8% of you said you're willing to pay that much money. So our target audience shrinks dramatically. If we're targeting between $7,500 and $10,000, we're now looking at 30% of you. If we can keep it between $5,000 and $7,500, we're now targeting over 70% of you. So it's much better to keep the price range in there, $5,000 to $7,500, but it's almost impossible for us to do that outside of Canada. So the trips we have chosen will all be in that range, $5,000 to $7,500, and most of them much less than $7,500. We've chosen Newfoundland, a trip that would go in June with Lowe's and Stewart. It would be about 9 days long. To give you an idea of price, they had a trip in July of this year. For twin occupancy, it was about $4,500 a person. For single occupancy, it was $5,500. So we expect in 2027 it would still be less than $6,000. We've chosen Nova Scotia. We think that's another great destination in the east. Again, June would be the best time to travel. It would be about 7 days long. Start off in Halifax, visit all the areas around there, go up to Sydney, go on the Cabot Trail around Cape Breton, and then head inland before going back to Halifax. That trip should also come in under $6,000 a person. The third trip is Quebec City. Now, a lot of us like traveling to Europe, and if we're asked why, we're going to say history, culture, food. Well, guess what? We got 400 years worth of French history around Quebec City. We've got a culture that is unique in North America, and we haven't been there in a long time. So we thought it was time to go back. Now, we're looking at September as a good time to go. We could fly, we could go by train, or we could go by bus. But this is kind of a Goldilocks scenario. Fly, but it's a really short flight. Go by bus, it's a long bus ride. So we're thinking the train may be right in the middle in the way we want to go. It's not a long train trip. You can have your dinner and relax. So we're looking at a train trip for that. The last one is a trip by train up the Agua Canyon. I don't know if anyone's ever been on it, but it's a train trip that goes out of Sault Ste. Marie. It's a one-day trip. Really great if we could find that time when the colors are best. So we're looking at October, but it's going to be tough to hit the peak. We're just hoping we get some color. This year you get nothing, right, with the weather we've had. That trip could be 3 to 5 days long. It depends on whether we stop on the way to Sault Ste. Marie overnight, which I imagine we will. It's about a 9-hour bus ride, so that's a little bit long. And it also depends how many days we stay in Sault Ste. Marie. Cost, we expect about $2,000. So you see, we've tried to target lower prices to get more of you to try and sign up for these type of trips. And you'll see that when we go to outside of Canada, it's a different story. Ellison will be arranging these trips, and I think we've got great trips lined up. You see the first one, Australia and New Zealand, and we're going to go on a cruise. Right? This cruise would leave from around Auckland, so we fly into Auckland, a couple of days around Auckland, get your legs sort of limbered up because you've been on a plane for a long time. And then you head on either a 10 or a 16-day cruise. You spend most of the time stopping around New Zealand, but you make one stop in Tasmania and 2 stops on the mainland of Australia. I think it's Eden and then Sydney. A couple of days in Sydney, and then you fly home. Overall, it could be between 21 and 25 days. Those who would say they still want to have more time in Australia, Ellison is quite happy to help you stay in as long as you want in Australia at the end of the trip. This trip is likely to cost about $15,000 a person. I know that's a big gulp, but the main reason is we're there for 21 days. If you take any of our trips and you expand them to 21 days, you get in the range of that price. So it's not out of the realm of acceptability, but it's something you got to plan on. The next one we looked at was Greece. Greece could be a land and sea trip. We're patterning it after Croatia. Anyone who went on the Croatia trip came home raving. And one of the things they liked best was you went on a private little cruise ship, spent 7 days, I think it was, cruising around. Then you had the land portion afterwards. We can kind of model that with a trip to Greece, because you can fly into Athens, tour around Greece on land, see all the great sights, then hop on a cruise ship and 7 days around Greek islands. And I've been told they even have little private yachts, like cruises that we could get on, similar to Croatia. That would be a little pricier, but it could be a great experience. When we look at the pricing for that, we're expecting it will start about $10,000, depending on the length of the cruise, depending on what cabin type you like, it'll increase a little. The third trip is Scandinavia. This is primarily Norway and Sweden. However, when I went online and started to look at what trips look like around there, they often start in Stockholm, work their way down south, end up in Copenhagen, take a cruise over to Norway, and finish the trip there. So I'm kind of hoping we could get a little bit of Denmark in there as well. We would look at that traveling in May. We normally would travel in September, but September is cold and wet. Not a great time to travel. It would be about 12 to 15 days. We would target that to be $10,000. We'd hope it would come in a little bit less. So you can see we started off with the worst story of price, and we're working our way down. The last trip we're looking at is England and Wales. Over all the years of travel, I don't think we've ever been to Wales. So we thought this would be a good time to go. We would likely go September and October, primarily because we'll be flying into London, then make our way through the English countryside into Wales, perhaps through the Cotswolds. September and October will be a great time to travel there. We'd start sort of South Wales, work our way up to the north, and then we got a decision point. We could head back to London by going through a different part of England, or we're just a short trip to Liverpool, Manchester. Imagine a Beatles tour of Liverpool added onto it, right? So there are lots of possibilities. That trip would start about $8,500. Depending upon the options we select, it could be a little higher, but should be the lowest trip of the bunch. Okay, are there any questions? We are trying to take your feedback and put it into place, so we hope this year we get a lot more people signing up than we did for the last trips.
Thanks very much, Kevin. That really was a plan to keep the best to last. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming out today. I hope you learned a few things about what's happening with your association. You know the pension plan's in good hands, and we look for nothing but more growth at Bruce Power, and hopefully soon something on Bruce C. With that, I'll wish you all, I guess I won't see you till the winter time, or the end of the winter, so I wish you a good winter. Hopefully you're going somewhere where it's warm, but not south. And I don't know where that would be, but anyway, thanks very much for coming out, and we'll see you in the spring.